By the time the fireworks bloomed over the Little League outfield and the church choir hit that wobbly high note on God Bless America, my parents' perfect grandparent brand had already face-planted on the grass. Their facade, meticulously shellacked for decades with bake sale smiles and prayer circle gossip, shattered on the Jumbotron when the MC, a former student of mine who still owed me a favor, tapped the mic and said, "Quick PSA, if you use your child as an ATM, don't leave a paper trail." And there it was, a carousel of enlarged screenshots spinning like a Macy's parade float. Zelle receipts, Venmo notes, THX for Cabo Ticks, emergency PS5, and the pièce de resistance, Mom's text, "Use his account, he won't notice." The crowd did what small-town crowds do when holiness springs a leak. They gasped like they'd discovered sin for the first time, then leaned forward for details. My parents stood like department store mannequins whose arms had been welded into piety. Dad adjusted his veteran's cap. Mom fiddled with the gold cross that has seen more theater than an LA casting agent. Cousin Becky clutched her pearls for real, and the favorite grandkids, blessed, haloed, sunscreened, stared at the screen long enough to read their own names next to purchases I couldn't afford for my own kid. I didn't smile. I wasn't even triumphal. I was calm, like a weatherman pointing at a tornado he warned you about all week. The mayor tried to hustle the MC off stage, but it was too late. The receipts looped like a theme park ride, iPad, drone, Broadway tickets, a monogrammed varsity jacket for a child who cannot spell varsity. "Why would a grandmother write 'Don't tell him'?" someone in the bleachers asked. The choir missed another note. A toddler cried. The favorite grandson muttered, "Uncle paid for my ski camp?" He'd posted that camp on Instagram with a caption about hard work and hustle, and I, the silent sponsor, had liked it like a good little secret philanthropist. My son, my polite, slightly skeptical, dinosaur fact machine, leaned into me. "Do we still call them Grandma and Grandpa?" he whispered. I shrugged like an American, pragmatic and tired. "We'll figure out what we call people who practice betrayal and call it love." Mom found her voice. "This is slander," she announced. "Forgetting slander is spoken and libel is written, and the Jumbotron, alas, is neither a rosary nor a courtroom." Dad demanded the slideshow stop. It did, but the hush that followed was its own documentary. On the grass behind the bleachers, the HOA president whispered to the PTA president with the conspiratorial awe of Cold War defectors. So the legend is true. Someone finally cut off the Martins. The Martins, my parents, have always treated image like a mortgage, pay every month and don't miss a payment. They are the founders of a charming civic cult that meets in casserole dishes and dress codes. They rehearse their sainthood like a pageant, which is why the reveal needed lights, an audience, a soundtrack, and a pie auction rolling in the background. I'd imagine doing this in a lawyer's office, just me, them, and air so tense you could slice it into charcuterie. But America doesn't click for private reckonings. It wants a premiere. So I gave our toxic family a cinematic ending first, a reverse chronology cold open like those prestige dramas where the hero bleeds on the floor in minute one and then the title card snaps in, "How did we get here?" The band struck up a march as the mayor declared a brief intermission for technical difficulties, which is what small towns call truth. I helped my son to the snack table as neighbors parted like we were contagious. "You planned this," Mom hissed, which was accurate and also funny because she says the same thing about the lunar eclipse and interest rates. "No," I said, "I curated it." America loves a curated experience. I handed my son a lemonade and said to my parents, "The thing about facades is they rot from the studs out. The thing about rot is eventually, well, it shows." Dad opened his mouth, maybe to invoke sacrifice, maybe to recite a parable about duty, but the MC returned to the microphone. "One more item for the fireworks raffle," he said brightly, "a family budget seminar courtesy of, oh look, it's pre-sold to the favorite grandkids." Laughter scattered over the field like sparklers. My mother's smile quivered, a curtain in a draft. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt not fury, not grief, but relief, like stepping out of a sauna you were raised to call a living room. This is where we begin, at the end, with the lights up and the saints revealed as shoppers. Now I'll rewind. I grew up in a house where we did Thanksgiving like the Macy's parade and subtlety like a missed bus. Dad worked 3 jobs and told anyone who'd listen. Mom prayed over everything but sales tax. We were patriotic to the point that the flag had roommates, motivational plaques, a framed coupon from 1987, Dad's Letterman jacket sharing wall space with the 10 Commandments, like it too, came down from Sinai. When I graduated, my parents hugged me the way small business owners hug capitalism. "You'll be the one who makes it," Mom said, eyes wet, voice pitched to reach the neighbors. "We're so proud." Pride in our house was less a feeling than a marketing plan. I went to college, the first to cross state lines for that kind of debt. I learned how to pay bills, how to speak fluent email, how to take calls from my parents. Not to bother you, sweetheart, but your father's knee, and how to press that familiar American bruise labeled obligation. I sent money because we do that here. We circle wagons around family even when the wagons leak. Besides, I thought it helped everyone. My sister married a man who believes hard in couponing as a political philosophy. They had kids who look like a Baby Gap ad conceived during a tax credit. I had my son, a miracle, a boy who calls thunderstorms sky arguments and can recite the names of every dinosaur like a litigator. The first time Grandma babysat him, she sent me a photo. My son on the couch, cheerful, holding a handmade sign that read, "Grandma's Helper." The same day she posted a photo with my niece at an amusement park with a caption about Grandma's Princess Day. My son noticed. "When is my Princess Day?" he asked, in that voice kids use when they're building a thesis. We were still in the era when I defended them. "They're just busy," I said, which is what Americans say about the people who choose not to show up for us. The money kept moving. The notes on the transfers changed over time from utilities to just until the refinance goes through to the simpler, blunter, Mom's card got declined again. I did not audit. It felt un-American to audit your own parents when the church newsletter prints their names under blessings. Then came the holidays. At Thanksgiving, my son received a sweatshirt 2 sizes too small that said "Little Helper." My niece unboxed a new tablet while Grandma narrated the unboxing like a YouTuber. "This one has the retinal display." Dad nodded and patted his pockets for the pipe he doesn't smoke. I took a walk. The air outside was crisp, a commercial for mattresses. By New Year's, when I covered Mom's copay and then discovered she'd bought nosebleed tickets for the favorite grandsons to see a playoff game because they deserve a memory, I told myself this was a season, a hiccup, a plot line redeemed by heartwarming montage. Americans love a redemption arc. Even in our toxic family we reach for it like a TV remote. The parody took shape slowly. Mom had a way of thanking me by performing gratitude for others, like every debt came with a confetti cannon. "We're so lucky," she'd tell the hairdresser loud enough for the mirror to catch it. "Our son is so generous. He really wants to give." Did I? I wanted to be good. In America, good is sometimes indistinguishable from useful. Then came the betrayal with the lowercase b that accumulates into a capital B. My son's birthday party RSVP'd to by Grandma as "We'll swing by after the game being her favorite grandson's travel team scrimmage scheduled at the same time. She showed up with a grocery store cake and stories about the boys' hustle, as if hustle had a gender. My son, bless him, blew out candles with diplomatic cheer. He pulled me aside later and asked again, "Do they like me the same?" The question landed like a quiet lawsuit. That night, I looked through my banking app. The numbers told a story that could have pitched itself to Netflix. I asked Mom the next day for a breakdown. She said, "Honey, why are you being so harsh? Family is fluid." And it was the kind of sentence that lets you know no accountability will arrive today or tomorrow or ever. I slept badly. I dreamed of a game show where contestants spin a wheel labeled filial duty, and the grand prize is a lifetime subscription to resentment. I woke up with a clear American thought. Budget and boundaries are not betrayals. They are seat belts. And if you buckle up and the driver sulks, maybe the car was a cult. Cue the theme music. I didn't go nuclear. I went procedural. First, I closed the joint emergency card Mom convinced me to open years ago after Dad's dental scare. You would have thought I was canceling Christmas. "We're family," she said, voice trembling like a telethon. "Exactly," I replied, "and family doesn't spend invisible money on visible grandkids while treating my kid like a burden." I said toxic family out loud, like an incantation that repels guilt. I told them the allowance was over, effective immediately. "You can't cut off your parents," Dad said, as if I'd proposed outlawing Sundays. "Watch me," I said, discovering that American resilience sometimes sounds like customer service, calm, scripted, firm. Then I did the unthinkable for our clan. I documented. I mined old texts, emails, notes on transfers. I requested bank statements. I asked my sister what she knew. She flinched, then forwarded me a group chat where Mom had written, "Don't tell him about the trip, he's touchy." Touchy. That word hung in the air like a scented candle called gaslight. The conspiracy theory about my parents, that their generosity had always been a rebrand of control, stopped being theory when the receipts lined up like runway lights. If this were a true crime doc, this is where the voiceover would say, what he discovered next would change everything. What I discovered was ordinary American rot, small choices, pretty lies, unexamined entitlement. I also discovered flair for production. I planned a reveal not because I craved spectacle, but because spectacle is the only language my parents speak fluently. They'd built a life on public narrative, church acknowledgments, civic awards, Facebook captions about blessings. They weaponized optics. I met them there. I timed it for the 4th of July because my parents love patriotic camouflage. I recruited the MC, booked the Jumbotron during the raffle, and set the sequence like a parody of a product launch. Who's funding Grandma's halo? Slide 1, transfers. Slide 2, use his account. Slide 3, ticket stubs, gadgets, cruise deposits. I added a final slide, not numbers but a story. My son's school fundraiser where he asked if Grandma would sponsor him like she sponsors the other grandkids. She said she was tapped out, then posted later about surprising the favorites with matching scooters because childhood is short. I captioned that slide with my son's question, "Do they like me the same?" and let the words sit there without music. Even in parody, truth doesn't need a soundtrack. Before the reveal, I did something quietly revolutionary for our household. I told my son the plan. I said we were going to set boundaries with people we love who were acting like strangers. He nodded, took my hand, and asked if boundaries are like dinosaur territories. I said yes, and he drew a map with a marker, circling our house like a national park. When the night came, the town gathered the way towns do. Lawn chairs, bug spray, gossip. The slideshow landed. You know the rest. After the Jumbotron, my parents attempted emergency PR. "We did what we had to for the kids," Mom said, meaning the kids she liked better. "You always misunderstood us," Dad added, as if I hadn't understood in forensic detail. They tried tears as a strategy. They tried anger as a strategy. They even tried nostalgia, reminding me of my Little League trophies that Mom polished with the ferocity of a campaign manager. I said, "You trained me to care about optics. Tonight, I changed the camera angle." They asked what I wanted. I gave them an American list. Repay what you can on a schedule. Apologize to my son in words that are not performance art. Treat all grandkids equally going forward. And stop using church bulletin boards as your image consultant. "You're punishing us," Mom said. "No," I said. "I'm describing justice. Punishment is what happens when you hide." They refused the repayment plan, naturally suggested a clean slate. I said slates are how you scrub victims out of stories. My sister approached me later, eyes tired. "You nuked them," she said. "They were a minefield," I replied. She looked at her boys, at my son, at me. "The boys love you," she said quietly, something true inside the wreckage. "I love them too," I said, also true. We stood there, two products of the same factory, deciding if we could unionize against generational nonsense. Over the next weeks, my parents tried to rebuild their facade with frantic goodwill. Casseroles on porches, awkward invitations, a Facebook post about forgiveness that invoked eagles. I didn't ban them from hope. I banned them from my wallet. My son and I invented new rituals, backyard movies, museum Saturdays, a laminated budget he decorated with tiny T-Rexes because every line item is more fun with dinosaurs. When he asks what we call my parents now, I say, people who are learning. Some days they inch forward, some days they sprint backward toward the pageant. Either way, the stage is closed. If this sounds like satire, that's because it is. An American parody with a moral old as daylight. Love that demands invisibility is not love, it's theft with better branding. Families aren't toxic by fate, they're toxic by habit. And betrayal isn't a lightning strike, it's a weather pattern. On the 4th of July, a facade fell. Not because I'm cruel, but because I finally believed something radical and banal. My kid deserves grandparents, not PR. If they want to come back as the former, they know the terms. Until then, the Jumbotron is retired, the receipts are in a folder, and our territory is marked with ordinary joys, the only fireworks a kid really needs.